Bang, let's start the fucking show, eh?
This is the sound of grooving faces.
Didn't need to ask, don't know the reason. Everything that I believe.
Hello,
is right
Emma.
here.
Hi, what can I do for you?
Thinking about tomorrow.
It's good to meet someone who is on.
You are
Couldn't
so
catch it
beautiful. I love you
if
so
I
much.
tried.
I won't
World
say
is
yes
spinning
or no
too
right now.
fast, so I'll wait
You are
till
so
it
sexy.
comes to me.
Don't stop, babe. Faster, deeper, harder. I love you.
I love you too.
You are me.
Thanks, I like you a lot too.
We are one.
Well, hello once again, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host once again, and of course, I'm always joined by Wasted. We got an interesting topic tonight, something that we have talked about before, but I think we need to revisit it because it just keeps getting weirder and weirder as we go on. It's the topic of AI and AI deepfakes and AI sex and artificial intelligence and what's happening, and there's no regulations, and it's wild, wild west in the internet world with all this deepfake stuff coming out. Who's who, what's what, we don't know. I'm going to talk about it with Wasted. Wasted, how are you?
I'm doing good. Just opening a beer.
There we go. We need that. So, Wasted. AI, sex, robots, deepfakes, celebrities, politicians. When does it stop? What's going on? What can you tell me?
Well, it's going to be a big problem, that's for sure. As in, they're going to have to come up with a load of new laws or some way of monitoring it to protect individuals and politicians. I guess overall, people are just going to get used to the idea that this kind of thing exists. So when your mum calls you and tells you to transfer her like $1,000, you know, you can't trust her. It could be a deep fake. So you need to use Skype more, don't you?
It very well could be. I mean, at first, I think I was doing some digging today, and I came across a PDF document from Homeland Security. Sorry, it's called "Increasing Threat of Deepfake Identities." It's from Homeland Security. Was released a couple years ago, and they start talking about how the threat of deepfakes is becoming more and more prevalent, and they traced it back to 2017. Motherboard reported on a video that appeared on the internet in which the face of Gal Gadot had been superimposed on existing pornographic video to make it appear that the actress was engaged in the acts depicted. So, despite being a deepfake, the video was good enough quality that the casual viewer might be convinced or just might not care. That's going back now, so we're 2023, so we're going back 6 years now since deepfakes came to the forefront, and all traced back to that Gal Gadot video. And from then, now we've seen umpteen deepfakes concerning Donald Trump. He was one of the most deepfaked videos and pictures on social media, especially going now with his trial that's going on. There's pictures of him fighting with the police and standing in a mugshot and standing in front of a crowd. All of them are fake. All of them have now been known to be fakes. But he is one of the most deep-faked personas, people, if you will, out there today. There's lots of Joe Biden and his voice. There was a podcast that used Joe Biden deepfake, saying that Joe Biden was saying Joe Biden will be back on the so-and-so podcast. You can count it, Joe Biden out. And they were all laughing that they got it done. It sounds exactly like him. It doesn't sound anything like a computer generated voice. So things are progressing in the deepfake world at a staggering pace. And it's very alarming. I want to talk about deepfake porn. What do you think, Wasted?
Well, I think this could get, it goes like two ways. I mean, I think it could be very damaging to like teenage girls in a sort of lower register way, just, on a day-to-day basis, if they can be like just photoshopped into something like that and then spread around the school. So there's that kind of element to it. There's already kind of existed probably, hasn't it, in terms of like sexting and just photos, nude. But now they don't need permission to do it. So I think that could like affect like a teenage girl or something. When you get older, and then when everybody knows about this thing, it'll just get dismissed more easily, I think. So
go ahead. Sorry, Wasted.
Yeah, I just think that it could be like damaging to kids, like on a sort of like day-to-day basis, easily. Even if it is known to be fake, it can still like affect them.
Absolutely. There's going to be psychological effects that are going to be felt for years. It's funny that you did talk about consensual or not, because two very prominent websites, Pornhub and Reddit, have banned all deepfakes from their sites, citing that it's non-consensual content. So they've taken that step to try and eradicate it from their sites, and it would especially be damning on something like Pornhub, because, well, it's a porn site, and a lot of people like celebrity porn. There was a while celebrity porn, and then of course there was it was called revenge porn that guys were putting up and quickly taken down, because again it's non-consensual, of guys that have broken up with their girlfriends, and these are real people, and had posted pictures of him and his ex-girlfriend having sex without the knowledge of the girl. So that's been quickly put to rest. But with the emergence of deepfake technology, it wouldn't be that hard to just make up a video altogether. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that part of it, but it also depends on the actual like victim. Like if you put me in a deepfake porn, I'm like, yep, that's definitely me.
For sure.
I'm going to show it to people. It's not going to really like bother me. It all depends on the victim. So the only thing I can see is like you said, the rules that they're going to bring in, plus everybody just being aware that it is like this deepfake and that's around. That awareness, people, obviously there's going to be another layer of distrust in the culture to deal with it as well. Like if somebody sends you like a picture of your girlfriend like having sex with Donald Trump, you're not going to like believe it straight away. This stuff has always been there, like, the intent, like remember the fappening?
Of course.
Still
it was huge.
The same kind of, but now they can just do it without sort of consent, can't they? They can just keep going deeper and deeper into it. But the apps that they've got now, they're almost for like daily use.
Well, all you have to do is type into Google AI deepfake, and dozens of apps, websites, companies come up, right? It's very easy to be done right now if you have the technology to do it, right? And I think with more and more companies and apps and whatnot coming out, it's just going to lower the price of everything, because it's just going to be a saturated market if it isn't already. But the U.S., the White House did just start a bill for it's a blueprint for AI Bill of Rights. So that's coming now. I don't know if it's in effect right now, but it's definitely being presented. And there's relationships to existing laws and policy. I mean, you can just read it if you want. It's a lot of legal talk and mumbo jumbo, but there's algorithmic discrimination that occurs when automated systems contribute to unjustified different treatment or impacts, disfavoring people based on their race, color, ethnicity, sex, including childbirth, blah, 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 like all that stuff, right? So it touches upon data privacy, principles to practice, everything that you can think of. human alternatives, considerations, and fallback. Like I said, all you have to do is type it in and you can see it, but it's at the point where now, so the conspiracy theorist side of me is looking at this and wondering, like, who's funding who here? I mean, so deepfakes are coming in and obviously they could be very damning and have a damaging effect, but is the tail wagging the dog a little bit here? And what I mean by that is this a push for more censorship on the internet? Is it the governments collectively getting together and putting these deepfakes out on purpose? Not necessarily the sex ones, or they could be, I don't know, but the Donald Trump ones, the Joe Biden ones, all the ones, the actors, are they purposely putting these out in hopes of getting caught so that they can add more restrictions to the internet and restrict and censor more of what we see?
Oh, yeah. I think, normally, recently people have been worried about the sort of sentient AI, or, AI has its own thoughts or its own, its own demonic evil to it. But really, you should be looking at the evil of the people who actually own the AI software as well. And then, obviously, the long-term goal of any state is normally like control. So to have instead of having a police state, you'd have a digital police state, and that's basically what like Elon Musk is like part of with the Everything app. They want to get everybody in the same position, in the same place. And, they have to be able to, if your money is going to be on that app, they have to be able to enforce it. So
sure,
it's the same
absolutely.
with the AI porn. There will definitely be people, actors, who are pushing the bad side of it so that it can be shut down, like the problem, reaction, and the solution. They will create the problem, then the media will, create the outrage about it, and then they'll bring in the laws to control everybody. Just kind of like how they always do it. So it's probably going to happen again with the... Of course. I mean, obviously, you can't have the internet being the Wild West forever.
No. And
you could, but that would be crazy.
I mean, just think of social media in its infancy. When, I remember when Twitter came out, that was probably around 2012, I believe. And I was one of the first of my friends on it. I was pretty interested in it and whatnot. And, you think of Twitter back then and you think of Twitter now. And in a lot of ways, Twitter has devolved into a cesspool of hate and whatnot. But, there were literally no restrictions back then. Like, there was uncountable sites or accounts of porn, whatever you wanted, right? And drugs and porn and everything nefarious that is out there. They had a Twitter account, right? And of course, there was also the clones of real accounts and spreading misinformation or disinformation. But, they had to clamp down. And Steve Wozniak and Elon Musk, both of them, and if you don't know them, those are two of the highest players in the tech world, right? Of course, Elon Musk with Tesla and SpaceX, and then Steve Wozniak is co-founder of Apple. They're both asking for like a halt or a slowdown of AI technology because, and the quote is, because it presents a profound risk to society and humanity, right? So, when you get guys like, sorry, go on.
No, I think they always lure people in with like convenience and porn and get you onto the site and using it, and it's free. And then they slowly the big business starts working with the government, and then they start like getting control of it because they don't want it to get out of control. But they always start off saying everything's very easy, you do whatever you want. So that lures people into using it. Now we've had fun with internet and social media and everything for like 10, 20 years. Now they're starting to think, now this is a form of control that everybody wants. That everybody wants the convenience. And the banks are in.
I remember when the internet basically became a thing, more than just chat boards that it was started out as. How do you, like, I know how I feel about more censorship on the net and what we see and what we can't see. How do you feel about it? I mean, I personally, I'm always on team chaos, right? I think if I want to see something, I should be able to go see it within reason. Obviously, there's some things that really shouldn't be out there, the obvious ones. And considering my children, I think it should be up to me to say what they can and can't see, and myself be in charge of blocking certain websites rather than the government. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, you'd want to sort of mirror what is going on in the real world to a certain degree. Like, you don't want, I mean, everybody says, even if they say they don't want censorship, they still want censorship for like snuff movies, as in they don't want snuff movies on primetime TV, like most people don't. You know? So there's always going to be a level of censorship. But I think maybe the transparency is the issue with the Twitter files and the kind of interference and who they actually censor. It's how it's enforced and whether the rules are like applied equally.
Agreed.
I think we talked, or maybe I talked about somewhere that are they going to apply the same rules about even like disinformation on the internet? Do they apply the same rules to themselves or the mass media as they do to individuals on Twitter? Because Twitter basically drives the whole political narrative now. I know we think about it as everybody just hating each other and drama on the internet and like Twitter rants and Donald Trump, all that stuff. But actually the whole thing is driving the political narrative. So whoever controls that has a big advantage. I'm sure that they have some kind of, between the intelligence agencies and Twitter, there's some kind of back channel thing going on as well.
100%.
So that's all the stuff that matters more. I mean, yeah, you can probably set the private security settings so that your kids can only use it for like an hour screen time, and then you can set it to only certain websites or only certain apps. You can virtually turn everything off. I think there's also like something called I don't know if it's in the US or in Asia, they have things called dumb phones now for school kids. It's like a phone that basically isn't a smartphone. It basically comes everything turned off.
Really?
It's only really a phone and a sort of WeChat, a sort of email or a texting thing. You can do that to your own phone, but I think you can now buy them. They're very cheaper. They don't have the capacity to do all the same thing. And those little watches, the Apple Watch, so that's very limited. I mean, you can still like keep in contact or track your kids, but they can't play like Candy Crush in math lessons.
Right. See, again, as a parent, like my kids are too young to have phones yet and stuff. They don't, and they won't for a couple of years, but they know how to use the iPads and they're on it quite often. They play their games, whatever. But I mean, there's obviously some benefits to stopping them from being on all the time. But how is it different from when I was younger and my parents were saying, don't watch TV, it's going to ruin your eyes. And when, like, before television, my grandparents, parents, whatever, they didn't want people reading books because they were just sitting there and it was going to start rotting their mind, right? So, when does it become less beneficial to keep them off? At what point? You know what I mean? Because you're just denying them technology and denying them really what the real world is.
Yeah, you have to be able to do that stuff, and the only thing you'd say the difference is that it used to be, like kids and especially younger girls, it always used to be like their nose was always in a romance book or something. They were just reading all the time and they didn't really go out into the world and, get involved. But with the thing with the phone or the pad, that, from my use of YouTube or even shorts, I think it's an issue of concentration span. Like it basically is hard. Video games too is also just like hardwiring ADD, attention deficit disorder. Like have you ever used like YouTube Shorts where it's just like 10, 30-second videos, something like that, and you just swipe and it's just continuous? And you can sort of swipe up. that has to be like lowering your attention span because you can flick it on. You're getting addicted to this kind of very low level of stimulation that you can just switch it. And the content in the videos is just like, cat thrown out of a window, lands in a bucket of water and survives, and then flip on, it's contentless. Whereas maybe reading does damage your eyes, but there's something more kind of informative,
Well, yeah, I mean...
But there's YouTube videos that you can learn all kinds of things. And it seems to me like the kids that I know in the UK, that, they seem to like know a lot more than I did about, I don't know, how to screw in a shelf or something. They just know all this trivia about everything and health benefits, health tips and stuff, protein and energy levels. And I don't know, it's just a lot more trivia.
I definitely agree with you on that. But the
point is, do you need a concentration span in the future?
Exactly.
People have a lower level just means, the dumber you are, the better you feel, really. So
sure.
In the future, you need to be able to sit down and read like an entire book in one day. You never really need to anyway. So, and the fact that you can, there's the whole Neuralink thing as well. I don't know, in the end, at the moment, when I'm looking on YouTube, these ads keep popping up it's called AI dubbing. Basically now, if you pay the money, I followed the link, but I didn't want to pay the £39. You basically talk into your phone, and it spits, as you speak English, it spits out Italian or Spanish. So the language, I don't need to learn Chinese. I've just wasted 20 years of my life trying to learn Chinese. But now I can just use Google Translate really, and type in the English. That's the most basic level, and then press the button. And then I remember the ramifications. They were saying this 10 years ago about the tech jobs in the US or the UK, that as soon as English to Chinese to English, English to Chinese became instantaneous. So when you talk to somebody in English, say in India, you call up the call center. You used to think that you were going somewhere in the UK, but you were going somewhere in India.
Right.
But I think in terms of tech, as soon as it becomes instantaneous two-way system, you don't need to hire British workers for tech jobs. You can just hire Chinese because the language barrier is the only thing stopping you doing that. So that's disappeared now. So there's all these kind of knock-on effects to the AI stuff, and the whole sort of sex thing as well. The Google executive and the
Sure. Well, getting back to the deep fake nudes, the FBI has now issued a warning, an advisory warning of an uptick in extortion schemes involving fake nudes, right? And by creating AI tools. And I watched a video of a guy. He said he's been doing this for 20 years. He put out a bunch of Tom Cruise TikTok videos, like Tom Cruise golfing and Tom Cruise doing this and Tom Cruise, saying that. And it looks 100% real. Sounds like Tom Cruise. All he had to do was hire an actor that had similar features to Tom Cruise. So, i.e. a Caucasian male, thin, whatever, with dark hair, basically. And he filmed this guy doing all these TikTok videos, and then he basically cut out Tom Cruise's face and just put it on. And that's what these people are doing now. And this is going back to what you said earlier about high school girls and how they're going to feel, how it's going to affect them down the line, because the FBI is saying that the blackmailers they use these pictures to get money off these teenagers. This is going to drive people to kill themselves, or this is going to drive people to be ridiculed and made fun of endlessly. It's a very, very dangerous thing that's happening.
Yeah, even if people are aware of it, which everybody will, but I think it still has this sort of psychological effect. It's just if if your apartment gets broken into and you go back and everything's all over the place and they didn't really take anything, they maybe took they took something that you didn't care about, but there's still a kind of bad feeling about getting your flat broken into, you know.
For sure.
Same with the Tom Cruise stuff. Like I remember I don't even know if it's a deep fake, but it was like Tom Cruise running, like in the desert or something, talking about running for president. I believed that when I first saw it. I was like, he's definitely running for president, because this was before I really knew about it. But it still put the idea in my head that Tom Cruise could run for president, even though it turned out to be, you know, not true. But it still had this thing where it put it into your head that this could happen. And that, it's sort of like, it's also like rape. It's sort of, even though rape is bad, the girl, even though hasn't done anything wrong, they feel really bad about it. So
sure,
the crime and just the idea of them being out there in a porn just is bad for them psychologically. Even though everybody can say, "Don't worry about it, we know it's bullshit," it still has this kind of underlying. And what I noticed with that Google executive is that he didn't. The scientist guy and the technology people are just doing it because they can, you know, and they're interested in it. And they say, you know, if we can like stimulate you to have these emotions, and they're emotions and things that you all enjoy, like having sex, you know, whether it's virtual or not, you know, it's still something that we can do and you can enjoy it. But they don't really think further past that to the next level. They're just trying to get that job done and provide the service. So they're like outside of like any like moral feeling about it. But they also think they also seem to think that is kind of has some kind of, that's a positive thing. But they're also forgetting that you're not always in the metaverse, or you're not always in the AI sex bot thing. So when you leave that area, it's a bit like going on and playing GTA for 8 hours, and then you think you're that guy, and then you leave. You still have to go back to reality.
Right.
So they almost look at it as if you're always going to be in this perfect world, and this is a positive thing because you're always going to be there. They don't mention that you're actually going to have to go back into the real world. Like, why would you leave? Really?
Well, I think that's the desired outcome and I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on the show before. That's the outcome that some of these executives are striving for, is to create that complete AI world where they don't have to leave, right? They can just go in there and submerge themselves into that world and live there as a god forever.
Yeah, I think that will become a norm, and you can see a convergence. All the technologies converged into the phone, but they're also now going to converge all the social media, the sex, and the banking and everything into. I know that people say that the metaverse didn't take off, but that was just like this generation. The idea is still there, and eventually, you step by step, as you can see, the government guidelines for AI, they're getting ready for it all to be in this one place, and that keeping everybody in there basically achieves some kind of a objective. As in, if people are just online in there, they're pretty much under control. You can see them all, you can watch them. You know, everything's convenient. It's all become streamlined. It costs less. So a country that's doing that, like Taiwan, is a bit like that. It's so efficient with the phone and the technology that it saves them a lot of money. Like when you go to the hospital, it isn't a big pile of paperwork and hundreds of workers. It's just like I went to the dentist, just my phone and the 2 people that work on me. There isn't like admin staff there, so it's just saving money for everybody. And everything's much. I don't have to think. It's just the app does everything. Like you pay using the app. It tells you when you're supposed to be there. They don't have to talk. ATMs, obviously, the first one of the. You know, I always go to an ATM to do anything in the bank. So I don't want to have a social interaction with another person.
Well, it's the whole self-checkout line at Walmart too, right? Or the grocery or the supermarket, right? I mean, that's. Yeah, they're taking away jobs, but it's a lot more convenient, and I'm with you. I'll go to that. I'll go to the self-checkout or the ATM every time before I go into the bank or go to the actual cashier, right? I mean, it's convenience.
They upsell you in the bank, yeah?
For sure. Well, that's, yeah. They upsell you in the bank too. I mean, but it's, it's tricky because, I think I'm a pretty sociable guy. I like talking to people and I go out and I'm not shy to talk to anybody, whatever. I have a good time. But, there's also times when I don't want to talk to people. And that might be at the supermarket. That might be at the bank. That, like, just use the two examples that we've discussed, but there's the fine line of that being there for convenience and that becoming the norm.
There's a trade-off between, like, there's some sort of element of privacy to using self-checkout because you can just buy whatever you want and they don't, like, judge you. Like, if you've just got, like, a multi-pack of, like, I don't know, Snickers bars and 3 bottles of whiskey, they don't look at the self-checkout doesn't look at you weird,
That's right. Do you know what Midjourney is?
No.
Midjourney is it's an AI generated photos. Our buddy Franz was big on, he was the one that introduced me to it too. And for a while we were just, shooting pictures back and forth of stuff that you just make up, right? And you could, instruct it to do it in a cartoon style, in a Renaissance style. And then of course you could instruct it to do in a real lifestyle, right? So there was a picture of the Pope that went viral. I believe it was in March of this year. And, it was Pope Francis, but he was in like a Balenciaga, like a white puffy Balenciaga jacket, right? And of course it wasn't him, right? But this picture went viral because people, like, that's how good it was that people were thinking that, like, the Pope is all of a sudden a trendy guy, right? But it's scary. And I'm bringing this up because, I'm reading an article about, you kept talking about the Google executive. I suppose you're talking about Jeffrey Hinton.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Whoever it was, yeah. They're talking about the sex robot and that you didn't need another being. That's right. Just saying you don't need another person. We can actually, a total simulation that totally tricks you and you can't tell. And then obviously the Neuralink, I think he was talking about, or the article at least start talking about the Neuralink and, basically you'd be covered in electrodes or in some kind of suit. So you get all the sensations as well. So that is the next, and they use the Pro Vision or something, VR headset. Right. For the porn. I know that Oculus or something already exists, doesn't it? For just like watching a kind of 3D porn. But he's talking about more of a sort of one-on-one experience. Again,
going back to Franz, I'm pretty sure it was on the show too. When we were talking to him, he had said that he tried, or was it you that said that they tried the Oculus porn? Did you ever try it?
I think we were suggesting it to somebody else that why haven't they started using it? Right. Like somebody who was into porn, like why didn't they use it?
I just remember him saying that when he put on the headset, it was like Lara Croft from the early Tomb Raiders, you know what I mean? Like very pixelated, very pointy, right? So obviously fake. And just how far we've come in a short period of time, a long way we've come in such a short period of time is that now you're submersing yourself in a world where it seems real and what you said is you're like attaching electrodes to your body so you get the full sensation too?
Yeah, I think that's a way of going, isn't there? They're putting they could put sensors all over your body to like give, to simulate that, but they could also, the Neuralink is tapping into your sort of spinal and brain, and then you just they could just put any sensations in there want to, and then sync it up. So like Elon Musk, I know they just use it now to help people walk, get, spinal injuries, and I don't know, there was some story about a monkey. There's that, but there sort of seems to be like a physical that's the more physical side, but also going into the metaverse is a sort of another step.
Right.
Where it could still look, you could be looking at an image and it's not really there, but you could also be sort of interacting with some kind of doll or something. Like I used to, when I lived in Japantown for a bit, and on my way back from the subway to my flat, there was this like garbage depot thing with trucks and stuff. And one day I was walking past, and there was like a kind of like a sort of sex doll that was just like thrown on the side of the road there. Like they wanted to get rid of it. It looked like it'd been really used like heavily, and it had that tape on it and stuff. And I took it, and I was going to take it into my complex and get it up into my building, but I realized I had to go through security. So I went round the side and threw it over the wall, and then went inside and got it, and I took it up to my flat and I put it on my kitchen table. And I didn't know what to do with it. It was just this used sex doll, and I was just like sitting across, like eating cornflakes with it in the morning. And then I deflated it and like had to smuggle it down into the bin section to get rid of it. But yeah, I think Japan and those type of cultures, they're just way ahead of, like, in the UK, I don't know, but I don't think everybody's got like a sex doll. But maybe there's the whole flashlight thing.
Yeah. Flashlight.
To combine that thing with the kind of VR porn, you're getting close to the kind of contraption that they could make for you. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know why women don't have like some kind of mechanical like machine that has like a piston on it. I don't understand. They probably do, but it hasn't become very popular.
What's that machine that Howard Stern used? The Sibian. That's what it's called. That's what it was. The Sibian.
It was like a framework with a kind of dick attached to it.
Yeah.
There's also the sex swings?
The sex swing was that's a 70s thing, isn't it? I mean, that's going back a long way. So
you can sort of see how that they gave everybody Pornhub, which is sort of free to like get everybody into it. Then they're also like providing this other kind of the sort of contraption and the sort of dolls and stuff. So they're sort of like they're putting all these different elements together.
So Howard Stern has this contraption. I just pulled it up right now, and it's called the Sibian. So it's basically what you were saying. It's this machine that the girls go on and they ride it, and it's got like a penis on it that thrusts back and forth, and it's supposed to.
Is it like a bike? You like pedal on it?
They don't pedal, but you definitely go on it. Why? What would be the point? I don't understand. Myself, I don't understand why the next generation or the way we're going, we're so getting so far away from actual human touch. Like, to me at least, I would think that no matter where we go and how far the technology gets, it's never going to replace the real thing. Are we raising a bunch of incels to the point where they're taking over and that they can't get anything else other than this? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. It's just, it's almost like the corporations or this sort of, the people who are trying to make money, they create these markets, and then they kind of somehow they sort of kind of push everybody into these sort of things. Whether they're like outlawing one thing and letting the other thing go, but they seem to be, there's just investors like open the market, don't they? So they invest in it, and then it's open, and then they keep investing in it and keep pushing it. It's kind of just, to me, it's almost like the same kind of formula as the like war machine. You don't need to have a war, but because people are invested in it, it becomes more and more that's what's going to happen. And there's so many elements to why are the kids online so much? Well, it's because everything else is kind of boring in comparison.
Sure.
And they started young, and it's just that now I think it's almost like that's their normal social mode, is to go on to some chat rooms and talk to their friends and play video games. And it's just so much more exciting than just going to stand together at the park and maybe like get some beer or something.
But is it though?
Kind of like,
I don't know. Is it though?
I think they get trained. I think you get trained into it, so it becomes like that's what you want to do because that's what you do. So it sort of becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then when you try the other thing, it's just not as. Plus the environment around. I don't know. Like when I go back to the UK, I walk past my old school, like primary school or elementary school,
Right.
like on the way to the shop. When I was there was no like fence or anything around it. Now there's like 10-foot high, like almost like electric fences, like, and there's a proper security gate and security guards just for primary school basically in the countryside.
Really?
And I think that's kind of like I don't know whether it's the internet porn that's created more predators or more weirdos, or whether the media just created this fear that everybody, your kids are going to get kidnapped by a pedophile. So the security's gone up. So I think that's like part of it, is that people don't want to send their kids, to the park on their own. They don't want them roaming around in the streets because there's all this crime. And also, you see all these documentaries about kids getting taken, and YouTube videos also very like hyperbolic.
Yeah.
They show just motorbikes pulling up past like supermarkets, one guy getting off, picking up a kid that's just standing there waiting for his mum, and they just drive off. As just another.
That's nuts, man.
I don't know if that the YouTube also picks on. It's all about people getting killed and. The fear level, because that's what people want to see, isn't it? Sort of more like controversial stuff or scary stuff. I don't know if that trains everybody into like just saying, I don't want to leave the house. Because if I leave the house, I'll be in a car crash or somebody will take my kids.
Well,
so just
yeah.
let them stay here. It's safer. Cheaper, probably.
Right. The most I had to worry about when I was a kid was, don't go up to the van. You know what I mean? Don't go up to the black van that was offering you candy. You know what I mean? Like
free candy written on the side.
Yeah, like you know what I mean? And now it's guys on motorcycles like driving up and kidnapping children. Like I think like again as a parent, I'm cautious of what I let my children do, but I also am a little liberal on other stuff too, because I think they need to experience it, right? And, I let them go out on the street by themselves. They're all, like, there's a whole bunch of them always, but, I let them go out and stuff. But I don't know if my parents, when they let me go out, I don't know if my parents have the same or have had the same level of concern for like, kidnappers or pedophiles or just general bad people like I do today. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it was as prevalent back then as it was. And
I don't think it was.
I don't think so either. And I try not to let that, because again, to your point, like it's how much of that fear is driven from actuality and how much is it driven from media propaganda, right?
Yeah, I think partly media propaganda plus like your overstimulation that you've seen on YouTube videos, Netflix. Everybody's seen more movies and watched more TV, and a lot of it is touching on these subjects as well. There's whole documentaries about pedophile rings, Jeffrey Epstein, obviously. It seems like it's everywhere now, and that makes that kind of idea is much more known. But that's always been the case. As in, I think during the great John Dillinger era of crime, it used to be that newspapers didn't really report crime or murders on the highway. Back in the 40s or 30s or something, newspapers didn't always, and they almost created some of those crime figures like John Dillinger because it was exciting. But there was a time when the newspapers and the media didn't talk about it, so people didn't even know. But now we've gone almost to the other end of the scale, where every small local crime in the schools is like reported, isn't it? I mean, it's on social media straight away. So you're being exposed to it. It maybe always did exist though.
Well, yeah. I mean, and again, I remember I remember listening to some old timers talk. This is going back a few years, but natural disasters is what they were talking about, actually. And one of them was talking about all these increase in natural disasters that were happening. And this is going back to probably 2002, 2005, somewhere around there. And there are always more natural disasters now than there was before. And the other guy just said, well, is there more, or are they just being reported more because there's more news now? And that's a valid question, right? So who's who, right? Is it actually increasing in frequency, or is it just being reported more?
Yeah, and it depends on what the individual viewing habits is as well. Like your access to it. So there's that. I mean, it may be even being reported more on YouTube or on TV. But if you don't watch the news, like if you actually stop watching this stuff for a bit, you can almost believe that it's not really happening.
Exactly.
And a lot of it is. Some of it, like especially in politics, it seems to only last for like 1 or 2 days, and then they move on, never to talk about it ever again. And you get to the point where you're going, did that happen, or did I make that up? You know, there's huge things that happen that they never really talk about, and then there's things that actually happen that they never talk about as well. So it must be filtered through.
It's interesting to know who's controlling the narrative, right? So one thing that's in the news, like we're going to take a complete 180 here. I did want to talk to you about this. What do you think is happening in Maui?
I don't know. Sounds like coconuts and beer.
Do you know Maui's burning, right?
No, but I can imagine. But why is it burning?
Well, okay, so the story is, and it's probably true, is that there was a hurricane, that they felt the remnants of a hurricane and sparked a fire and basically burned down Lahaina in Maui. So the island is basically burning. So I
can say something about it.
What's that?
The same thing is happening in. Well, it's kind of related. Maybe are you talking about why is it burning? Like why is it on fire? Because I was reading one story in the UK. You know, they're always talking in the UK. The UK is like very like climate change, and they've been saying, you know, oh, it's because of climate change. They just say that's why it's 40 degrees, or that's why Europe is on fire.
Yeah.
But I read one story the other day, and it was something about a volcano, and this volcano erupted, and all these particles that went into the atmosphere, and they basically kind of changed the atmosphere so that less heat leaves, so that a lot of the world has been affected by this volcano exploding and all the little particles going up into the atmosphere. And that might be why Europe is actually rising temperatures, rather than just, you know, the carbon footprint of the world is also got something to do with this volcano. In Maui, what is it?
The story is that they felt the remnants of a hurricane and it sparked a fire in one of the forests there, and basically like half the island's burned and hundreds of people have died, actually. How an island as small as Maui, that's in the middle of the ocean, could be suffering from severe drought. I don't get that.
Because the water sources, it's more to do with the infrastructure, maybe supply line, as in they don't have access to have access to water, maybe, in reservoirs and stuff. Because there's a whole like cleaning system. In Taiwan, they have these reservoirs, and when it doesn't rain, they don't fill up. So they kind of run out of water. But a lot of water, like drinking water and stuff, they get imported. So there's the infrastructure part and the supply line. So the drought, you're talking about like a real drought, as in it hasn't rained enough. Or do you mean that there's a water shortage?
Drought as in it hasn't rained enough. But it does, like, it's an island. It's surrounded by water. I don't understand, so I can't make
Can you drink like seawater? Or does it?
Well, no, it's the ocean, right? It's the ocean, so it's salt water.
Yeah, but I mean, you can filter it, but you need to have all the technology to do these types of things. And if you don't, but yeah, they could. I mean, Taiwan rains a lot. There's like a sort of tropical cycle of really hot for a week, builds up big storm water, but they have problems with their water supply. For some reason, they don't have enough. I think it's because they don't have, the water might be there, but they don't have the infrastructure to actually use it. So it ends up with all the crops dying. You've got to get the water into the crops. I mean, I know there's rain and stuff. It doesn't make sense to me that they have a water shortage because it always seems to be raining. So,
right. Strange time to live in.
There are periods when it doesn't rain that. So in Maui it could happen. But I don't know what kind of crops what they trying to grow.
I know they grow pineapples. Lots of them.
I guess also seasons. You're not talking about, it doesn't have to not rain. It might rain, but at the wrong time. So when the seasonal, whenever the pineapple was supposed to get water, it didn't get it. Hence they call that a drought. Same thing happens here. There's something called plum rain. Or you know that movie, Black Rain?
Yeah.
With Michael Douglas?
Yep.
Where it's just like, it's raining like the whole movie. There's a thing called Black Rain where it's just this really dark, but rains for weeks. They have plum rains here, and it's something to do with the plum season. They have plums here, and it rains, and they need that. But if it doesn't come, these plum rains, then the whole crop is knackered. So these are all the things that the US and the UK kind of exported to other countries. We don't really grow as much stuff as that. We import this stuff.
Right.
Rather than actually do it ourselves in some cases. So you get sometimes here there's like definite seasons. Sometimes the stuff like fruits and mangoes and stuff, kiwis, they're everywhere. And then suddenly, because it's out of season, they disappear. So,
right.
In the UK, it never disappears because kiwis are imported. So UK is a weird place where they've just got everything, and you just think that it's like that Ali G thing where they, you take the kids out to the countryside, and when they get there, all the kids get off the bus, and they like point at like a cow and go, "What is that?"
Right.
Like and they ask me where does a beef burger come from, and they say like the supermarket. They didn't realize it was a cow.
Right. Yeah. Gotcha.
I think there's loads of kids like that. They don't even know where food comes from.
Well, I remember when I told my children, they couldn't believe it, right? Like we were eating beef, whatever, and I was like, yeah, this is a cow, and they were like, we're eating a cow, you know what I mean? Like, or we're eating a chicken. It horrified them, to be honest, right? I only I think last year I found out that cranberries grow like on water or something. I thought they were like a berry that, like a blueberry or something. But cranberries grow like on the top of water or something. What? Yeah, that's why they're called ocean spray. The whole thing just made complete sense. I was always like, ocean spray, the ocean spray brand. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they grow I think they grow in salt water or at least on water. They're not growing on a tree, cranberries. Like, what?
Well, look at that. Yeah.
There's something like a psyop, this Thanksgiving psyop just tricked me into thinking that it was like, they grew in a farm, like with the turkeys and there were cranberries just growing. Where were they growing? Like in the ocean.
Wow. How does I'm looking at this right now, and yeah, it's...
The process.
Cranberries grow on low-lying vines in beds layered with sand, peat, gravel, and clay, and they're known as bogs or marshes, and are originally created by glacial deposits.
So they grow on water. So when they farm, when they farm them, like the ocean spray, it's almost like a small little reservoir or like rice paddy field with a thin layer of water or something. Like that's not what I thought that cranberries were going to be like.
No, not at all, man. Well, that's interesting.
There's probably loads of stuff like that. I think even like cans. I always thought that like a Coke can was like, you'd have like the round bit on the outside and then they put the lid on or the bottom and then put it all together. So it's actually all made from one piece of tin.
No, I can dispute. I used to work in a canning factory.
Okay. I think you have to be on the front line to know all this stuff.
I used to work at a canning factory for real. And it is I'll wrap up the show with this story. So it was in the summertime. I had a job at a factory. I was still in high school, and the factory was a cola factory or a soft drink factory, and it made off-brand soft drinks like your store brand cola or store brand ginger ale, whatever, right? And for about a week, my job was I would hold up these tubes of lids. That like the cans would go on the production line, would get filled up, and then they would come to me in my area, and I would have these tubes of about 1,000 lids, and I had to feed it into the machine and just stand there. And the way my station was set up was I was facing the clock, right? And I didn't want to face the clock because this was the most mundane, like brain dead work I had ever done. So I take this big sleeve of lids and I feed it into the machine, and all the cans go by and it stamps them on, right? Stamps on the lid as it goes by. And I would have to get another sleeve, get it prepared to pour in so that there was no disruption in the production line. And I made a point not to look at the clock because I didn't want to get sucked into that. And I just kept doing this, and then I was like, okay, it had to, it had to have been at least 2 hours now, because I've been doing this for a long time and I've got the hang of it now. Dude, it was fucking 35 minutes. It was the most boring job I have ever done. So yeah, they're not from one piece of tin. I know, because I fed that fucking machine for what seemed like hours. Just lids as those cans went by on the production line.
Yeah, it's like the mail. It just never stops coming.
Never stops coming, man. And then, of course, all these guys, they hated me because I was just a student and I was a dumb kid. And if I fucked up, it was always if anything on the line fucked up, it was always traced back to me, right? Because I was a student. What a terrible job, man. But that made me think twice about leaving school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to fucking do this for the rest of my life.
I had the same thing with the first summer out of college or something. Everybody's like, get a job. So I just got this job at a chocolate factory, and I didn't know anything, and I just went in there, and the job was basically, they had this like nougat, they made this like hard candy or hard nougat stuff, and it was all on a conveyor belt, and all the offcuts that didn't go into some special chocolate just came down this conveyor belt, and I had a hammer, and I had to break it all up so that they could pack it into these, kind of commercial bags of offcuts of this kind of cheap nougat. So you have like the head ear muffs on, because everybody's in the line smashing this kind of nougat, hard nougat. And after I lasted like 2 days, because my ears were just like ringing at night. The first night I couldn't even hear. It was like you go to a concert or something in a club, had like tinnitus or something. So after 2 days I quit.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and then I did absolutely nothing for the whole summer. I avoided getting any of those jobs.
I remember one guy, as a kid, I was still a teenager, obviously. I was still in high school when I had this job, and a host of other jobs in summer times where people were doing these as careers. And just the people you met at such a young age, where you're so impressionable. I remember, I thought this guy was the coolest guy ever, right? Because his station was right by an emergency exit, a fire exit, and he had kind of disarmed the alarm for that door so he could sneak out during the day and take puffs out of his pipe, right? He was smoking weed all day. So he was on his line, and like, this is operating heavy machinery, right? So he's on his line, and he would duck out every hour or so to go take a couple puffs on his pipe to get high again. And then on his way home, he always had 2 King cans of beer in his car for the drive home. And I used to think, like, you know, I'm just a kid. I used to think this guy was the coolest thing ever, right? This guy's such an outlaw, he's a badass. Now, as like a fully grown adult, I'm like, that guy had a serious fucking problem, man. Like, you know, he's at work ducking out to smoke weed and then drinking 2 King cans on the way home, and that's his day, right? So it's different how your perspectives change, and I'm glad I didn't end up on that line like him.
Yeah, well, that's what those sort of jobs do to you, because they basically they don't give you any variety, do they?
They just suck everything out of you, man.
Yeah, they just go, you got 10 hours.
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing this one thing for the whole 10 hours. You know, it turns you into a complete brain dead. That's
for 5 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah, mangling your brain, and then at the weekend you can barely think. I had like a warehouse job where it was all about the numbers. There were all these lines of clothes, and they all came down, and you had to put them away. And you know, there was a sort of alphabetical system and a number system. And but you know, and I sort of, because I'm me, I just memorized all all the numbers and where all the aisles were, so I knew all the sections on the whole floor. But after like 3 months, that's all I knew.
Yeah,
when I left work, I was just like, I didn't have it. Just through the all night, I'd have like numbers running through my brain. Like this goes there. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything. And that one of those jobs, because you had to like reach up to hang the clothes. I remember one guy that I took around, like just showing him what the job was, and he sort of, I think you take a test and then you like a kind of a math test or something, so you can. But his problem was that he was too short to hang the clothes on the line, so he walked out. So he didn't accept the job because basically the rail was too high for him.
Oh man.
And another one was like, it took me a day to realize that he couldn't read. I was like, why the fuck is this all fucked? Like page after page of stuff that didn't like match up to what he'd actually done. And it's because he couldn't read or write. Well, he could write, but he couldn't read or something. So after a day, they had to let him go.
That's nuts, man. Anyway.
Yeah, I sort of had that with somebody, like, who used to go to, like, these, play football games, like, we were, like, kids, like, younger kids, playing in, like, an adult team, and the guy would come and pick us up in, like, a Porsche. And we'd be driving, like, 100 to the next city, basically, to play this game at, like, 10 o'clock in the morning. And he just, like, he had this Porsche just for, like, weekends, like, away from his wife or something. That's basically why he was playing. That's why most older guys would be playing. It's just, you know, Saturdays was like football day, and I don't know what was wrong with him. Like he always like the way he like walked around. It's like his tendons were too like short or something. So he walked around on his tiptoes. But then when he's like driving the car, he used to like he'd speed up and then he'd brake it and speed up. So you'd be going down the motorway, going forward really fast, then slow down. And by the time we got to the game, we'd all just like we'd get out. He'd pull the seat forward and we'd like get out of the car and just like basically puke on the side outside the pitch. He's just so like car sickness on the highest level. It's like, why are you driving like this? And I was just like, he also like I don't know why he always took it. I think we just crammed us into the back. Nobody wanted to get in the back of this knackered like Porsche 911. But there was like this big hill going down like somewhere around where we lived. He didn't know where he was going after, and he had probably had like 2 beers, like in the pub on the way home, and he was driving us. And he came down this hill pretty fast, and then suddenly there was a junction, and he slammed the brakes on, and there was all this gravel, and we kind of like slid across this road into this oncoming traffic. Well, luckily nothing was coming, and we just sort of sat there in silence, and he said, "Don't mention this to anybody." And then we put it in gear, and then just went went as fast as he could in the, down the road. So it's like, he's gonna get us killed.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing what some people think they can do, and in reality they can't. So,
on that note, get like speeding tickets they always get speeding tickets on the way to the matches.
Yeah.
You'd be on the field, look it up, going, where is he? And then you see his like Porsche 911 burning across the highway in the distance. And he'd turn up and go, I got pulled over.
Ridiculous. So you still doing the Wasted Show?
Yeah, on Rumble.
For sure. So look for
and Broski Rose, but Borky, he's also puts in content. I think he's supposed to be sending me something today. Something to do with he went to see a Guns N' Roses show, I think. So maybe he's got a review.
Right,
so
nice, cool.
The Wasted Show.
Cool. So the Wasted Show, you can find that on Rumble. Just type in the Wasted Show. Again, I listen to it. I enjoy it. Broski or Borky, whatever you want to call him. He's always an interesting cat to have on, and he's always got some interesting things to say. And we were on the local Discord chat. He was talking about the show a bit, and I hope you had a good time. And yeah, tune into the Wasted Show. It's always a hoot. Of course, we have the revamped, new named Shit Radio coming up. We'll have an update on that soon. And of course, my other podcast, the Cookout, currently on hiatus. Well, I don't want to say hiatus, but one of the guys is sick and has been for a while, and the other guy is doing summer things. So we're going to start that back up in the fall. So stay tuned. More stuff coming. Wasted, is always a pleasure talking to you. Anything else you want to say before we leave?
AI is the new war on drugs.
AI is the new war on drugs. This is your brain, and this is your brain on AI. With that note, have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.